Welcome back to the LSU Rivals YouTube page here on Death Valley Insider. We're joined today by National Recruiting Director for Rivals.com and Yahoo, Adam Gorney. Adam, thank you for joining us today. I've got a couple of things to run down through from the class of 2025 to the All-American Bowl, and two guys who don't have offers from LSU, but two that I wanted to chat with you about. So I think we should start with the class of 2025. Last Saturday, big day for LSU fans. Just a great start to the year for LSU fans is what it really feels like. But starting with the commitment of Bryce Underwood, did that one kind of throw you for a loop at all? And I mean, what does it really mean to the LSU class?
Yeah, no, it looked like LSU was going to be the team for a few months there. And then once Michigan took Carter Smith, it looked very much like the writing was on the wall for LSU. He had shown a ton of interest in LSU throughout the season. I think he loved what Jaden Daniels did. And they're very similar players in a lot of ways, pocket passers, but have the athleticism to get out and make things happen. And so as he developed that relationship with Brian Kelly, I think that really stood out a lot. Kind of a wrench was thrown in when Mike Denbrock left for Notre Dame. But credit to that staff and Joe Sloan and Brian Kelly for keeping that together. Underwood could end up as the #1 player in the entire class. He has all the special tools of a really big time playmaking quarterback. His release and stuff is still a little funky, but that just sort of means he's not a finished product yet. So he could do pretty much everything he wants on a football field. He has incredible playmaking skills, and he's the #2 player in the country right now, the #1 quarterback. So a huge win for LSU to go to a part of the country that usually Michigan keeps those kids, or Ohio State would get a kid like that. A great job for Brian Kelly to go up there and get Underwood.
And looking at the other offensive guys in this class of 2025, Harlem committing 3 days before that, the #1 recruit in the state of Louisiana, #3 running back. And then a couple months ago, Corian Moore, 5-star wide receiver out of Texas. And I mean, what does this just kind of say about where they're building this class, especially early on?
Yeah, incredibly impressive. I think Harlem is, going to be in the running for the #1 running back in the entire class right now. That is Jordan Davison from out here at Mater Dei. But Harlem is definitely in that conversation. And then Corian Moore, with Ryan Williams reclassing to 2024, is now the #1 wide receiver in the class, a 5-star who was just outstanding at OT7 this summer, made like multiple highlight reel catches throughout the weekend. So they have loaded up on the offensive side. Don't forget Teron Francis, who's also a very impressive kid. J.D. LaFleur is a tight end, kind of a big-bodied tight end. Not someone who's going to, really stretch the field for you, but a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes. They've done well at the offensive line. So there will be a lot of schools trying to come in and flip these guys. But LSU is off to a very, very, very strong start in 2025, especially with Underwood, Berry, and Moore.
Awesome. And I mean, pivoting here to the All-American Bowl, we know you went to all the practices. Yeah, you saw the National Combine as well. I want to start with the All-American Bowl practices, some guys that, stood out to you on the LSU side, looking at those linebackers real quick with Kolaj Cobbins and Davhon Keys, both on the starting side for Team West. What have you kind of liked from those guys? And even when I talked to Kolaj Cobbins, he told me he's more of an edge guy who's going to come off the line, give you some blitz, but he was more in man coverage. What did you kind of see from them?
Yeah, Cobbins is definitely more of an edge guy, kind of a long, lean guy that's gonna blitz off the edge. I do think he probably needs maybe a year to kind of fill out a little bit. Coming off the edge against SEC competition is not for the faint of heart. So, but he's explosive and he could get after it. Probably about 6'3", 6'4", 215. So there will be a little need to bulk up there. Davhon Keys is not an edge guy. He is a sort of a sit in the middle linebacker, come downhill and knock people around kind of guy. Muscled up, physical kid. Probably doesn't hit that 6 foot mark, but is probably around 210, 215. So he's a guy that can run and go sideline to sideline, but also likes to come downhill and hit. So definitely different types of linebackers there, but two valuable guys for sure.
Is Keys one that you see making a quicker impact than Kolaj Cobbins?
Yeah, it's always hard in the SEC to come right in and make a huge impact, especially at a place like LSU. This is not a lower level SEC school that really needs immediate help all over the field. But Keys is definitely more physically ready to come in and do that. Cobbins has that explosiveness off the edge, but might need a year or two to get really going.
Sticking on that defensive side of the ball, Juwan Johnson, who unfortunately suffered a concussion there in a Thursday practice on one-on-ones, but he's on the defensive side now at a defensive back corner position. Everyone knows he was a star quarterback in high school in Louisiana. Did you like what you kind of saw from him and some against more elite talent?
Yeah, and I want to be completely honest. I think there were some highs and some lows for him. I think it was these all-star games are incredibly difficult sometimes for cornerbacks because in one-on-ones especially, he has no over-the-top help. He can't really do anything on slants across the middle. There's no linebackers sitting there waiting to pick it off. There's no safety waiting to knock somebody around. So, and a lot of times these receivers love to go deep. So, the quarterback's sitting at about the 40-yard line, and this guy has to defend the entire field 40 yards into the end zone. So it's very, very difficult. But that being said, Juwan Johnson is definitely a good-looking kid. He can run and cover and has athleticism. And I love cornerbacks that played offense in high school too. He knows all the tricks of what wide receivers want to do. He kind of knows how plays develop and kind of the structure of what receivers want to do. So I don't think he's a kid that steps in day one. This isn't Derek Stingley, but he's going to be a very nice addition to that LSU defense down the road.
And Johnson's a guy who's not enrolling early, going to run track and field, compete in track and field this spring. Is for a guy that's switching positions like that, is that one that you would expect to get on campus early and try to enroll early?
No, I mean, I think you can look at it two ways. One of the biggest errors I think kids can make is wanting to be on the field as a freshman. You're going from Lafayette Christian in Lafayette, Louisiana, to playing Alabama and Texas A&M and the best players in the country. And about 90% of the players are not ready for it. So I think it's pretty wise actually to stay and run track. I love multiple sport athletes. Take your time, get to campus. I don't think you're going to see a ton of Juwan Johnson out there as next year, but get through next spring and then mature and get more physically ready, get more prepared, especially someone who's switching positions there or played predominantly quarterback, and then get ready down the road. So this instant gratification kind of idea sometimes works, but oftentimes backfires. And for someone like Johnson, for someone like Cobbins, take your time, get ingratiated into the program, and then kick ass down the road.
Looking at another guy that's enrolling a little bit late and playing that second sport is Kylan Billiot, who's playing basketball. He's in pursuit of his 1,000th point, but he put a pin in it to go to the All-American Bowl. What did you kind of like from him from the film we saw? I mean, he's a big body, 6'3" receiver that was getting up and making plays.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually very impressed with him. He was very good early in the week and then sort of leveled off as the week went on. But early on, he was making a lot of plays. And he's been a guy, honestly, that we haven't talked a ton about from a national level. He's a 4-star outside the Rivals 250. He could certainly make an argument to get inside it. I certainly don't foresee him losing that 4th star. But like you said, Kenny, he's a big-bodied receiver, 6'3". He's going to be an outside guy, sort of a guy that's you can throw it up to and he can go and get it. So again, I love multi-sport athletes. I absolutely love receivers who run track and play basketball. Do not specialize. If you are an athlete listening to this, don't specialize in one sport. If anyone is telling you that, they don't know what they're talking about. You want to play multiple sports. You want to get that sort of entire spectrum of athletic ability that you can, and you're a kid. So have fun, play multiple sports, and it will benefit you in the long run. So yeah, Billiot was a guy that was definitely impressive earlier in the week, beat a lot of cornerbacks on those high-end balls, and then went deep. So I liked him a lot.
And listen to Adam there if you are a high school athlete. I remember at the National Combine too, the coaches were saying, these college coaches want to see you participating in other sports, especially track and field or basketball, lacrosse, baseball, whatever you have. Another offensive guy I have written down here is Coen Echols, who told me he's enrolling early. His plan, his goal is to be that starting center come fall. I mean, that's a very ambitious goal from him. Late signee, he was the last one to join in the early signing period, flipping from decommitting from Texas A&M and then committing to the Tigers. What did you kind of see from him at the center position?
Yeah, you wonder if Jimbo stayed in College Station, if LSU would have gotten him, that would have been tough. But that situation opened itself up. LSU kept that relationship going, and it was very smart too. We list him as a guard because a lot of times we list guards that will end up playing center. It's pretty clear that he wants to be a center, and that's great. He's a guy that likes to mix it up. He can play across the offensive line, is athletic enough to play outside if needed, but is a physical kid who still sort of as a frame at 6'3", 290 can probably add a little bit of weight and get over to 300 pounds. I don't think that will be much of a problem. Now, if he can start on the interior as a freshman, we'll see. That might not be the best long-term idea for him, but I love that kind of attitude. Someone who's going in to compete and get after it. That's how he plays on the field. He's not going to shy away from anybody. He's going to hit people and move them out of the way. Echols is an impressive player who's a 5'7" now, but is definitely in the conversation for a 4th star.
And that's something that I was just about to ask you, talking about the stars. I don't know if you were in or at the Under Armour All-American game, but I want to bring up Dominic McKinley first, someone who has been pulling for a 5-star for these last couple of weeks, especially at that practice. What did you like from him?
Yeah, I'm not going to give any hints away, but I think LSU fans will be pleased with his new ranking when it comes out in a couple of weeks. We just hadn't seen a lot of McKinley in person. He came to the Dallas Rivals camp last spring, but didn't participate and let his brother get after it a little bit. Great looking kid, very soft spoken. So when he meets with the media in Baton Rouge, don't expect War and Peace to come out. He's just not going to talk a lot, and he's not going to talk very loudly either. But when he gets on the field, it's like a different switch. So he's very aggressive. He was pushing people over and dominating up the middle. A very impressive prospect with great size. So there is big potential for him to be a star at LSU. A massive flip from Texas A&M there for McKinley, and I think LSU fans are going to love him.
That's something to keep your eyes on there for all the LSU fans. But segueing into our last topics here, we brought up the National Combine. There were 2 guys that you told me to watch out for, Destrin wide receivers, and all LSU fans know what Destrin is and the products coming from there. We talked about Kolaj Cobbins, so he was a linebacker there this past year. 2 guys that you told me to watch, though, Jabari Mack and Philip Wright III. Jabari Mack earned an award, according to your eyes. What did you like from him?
Yeah, great looking kid. And I think as LSU continues with those younger classes, that Jabari Mack is someone who's going to get an LSU offer, and I would be surprised if he goes anywhere else. Filled out physically, great size, and super fast. And then, corners at that combine were desperately hanging on so they didn't get beat. And he was still making a lot of plays. So, he's got the green dreads kind of going. He's got a look. I like it. I like his personality, a good kid to talk to. I think Miami and some other schools have made an impression here. But when I asked him at registration day if that LSU offer changes things, he smiled. So, he's a local kid. LSU recruits incredibly well in state, maybe better than any school in the country in their state. So I think Jabari Mack is definitely one to watch.
2 other schools that we talked about with him were Texas and Oregon. Made that visit up to Oregon like the coaches, and of course he did have the Texas gloves on. Have you seen a guy like Jabari Mack, a class of 2026, that doesn't even look like a class of 2026 wide receiver? When I saw him out there, I was like, why is there a class of 2024 guy out here?
Yeah. I actually I don't want him to hit the weight room too much more, because he's going to get too big. Maybe a little like Perry Thompson at Auburn, where he's going to get big and filled out, but he's definitely physically ready here. If he was with the All-American Bowl kids, he would not have been a guy that you said, oh man, he needs a year or 2 to get physically ready. He's got thick legs, a thick, top half, big arms, 5'11", 180. He probably will get to 6 feet, maybe 6'1". Very good looking kid from Destrin.
And his teammate, Philip Wright, also caught a couple eyes there at the National Combine. For him, he's in class 2025, still doesn't have that LSU offer. Do you think it's something that maybe could land in his lap by March when some of these visits start rolling?
Yeah, honestly, I think once he gets, maybe back on campus at a junior day or gets over to campus, I'm actually surprised that these two don't have offers, knowing that LSU had been there multiple times to recruit Kolaj Cobbins. But this is someone down the road who will, at 10 offers, will probably top out at 25 or 30 offers. He's a little bit different physically. He's a little taller and longer and much leaner. So he ran really well at the National Combine. I don't have his time, but a lot of people were talking about how well Philip Wright ran there. And then he made a lot of plays during one-on-one. So a very fast kid, great hands. Mack is the more filled out physical one, but Wright is the longer, leaner one. I think probably if we look down the road and there's no telling, but I would assume both of these kids end up at LSU.
And last question here, looking at this class of 2025 as a whole, and we thank you, Adam, for being with us. What do you think the ceiling is? I mean, number 2 in the country right now, behind a Notre Dame class that's loaded with talent already. I think 12 or 13 recruits. Where does this Tigers class go from here?
Yeah, I mean, it is really off to a phenomenal start, but there are only 8, and then you think about, a lot of the kids in Louisiana are still uncommitted. So Harlem Berry's the number 1. He's committed to LSU. Kylan Moses, number 3. But you have Jabari Antoine, who's looking at Texas and LSU and some others. Devin Harper, a big offensive tackle from Shreveport. You would think LSU. Deshaun Ford, a big, tough, strong running back. Let's say if they want to double up with Harlem Berry, he's sort of the Lightning and Deshaun Ford is the Thunder. So there's a lot of good talent right now in the state of Louisiana. Right now, we have the top 15 kids are all 4 stars. That's a very strong group. They're going to finish well. There has never been a time in Rivals history dating back to 2002 that a team not from the South, or at least, the southern part of the United States, if you count USC, that won the team recruiting championship. So LSU has put themselves in a very strong position to do it. DeCorian Moore will be tried to be flipped by especially Texas with Colin Simmons there, his old teammate from Duncanville. That will be one probably that goes on forever. I know USC and many others are not going to give up on Harlem Berry. When Harlem Berry visited USC, they said he reminds them physically and of his play style of Reggie Bush. So there's a big compliment there. And Bryce Underwood definitely is not going to be stopped trying to be flipped. So there might be some drama along the way and some tension for LSU fans. But if they can keep on this entire class, it has a very decent chance of not only being top 5, but being the number 1 class in the country.
And a quick addition to that question, George McIntyre, another 4-star quarterback on LSU's radar. Would they go after 2? I mean, would George McIntyre commit to a team that has Bryce Underwood already?
Yeah, I would say no. I think Tennessee is probably the very much the team to watch there now. George McIntyre probably ended up at Alabama if Nick Saban stayed. Alabama was sort of doing this balancing act because they're still working very hard to flip KJ Lacey from Texas. He's a Saraland kid. He's an in-state kid. Nick Saban told him he's not going to stop recruiting him, but now Nick Saban's stopping recruiting him because he's retired. So it looks like KJ Lacey probably sticks with Texas unless Steve Sarkisian gets that job. Who knows? I mean, this is the fun of recruiting. It's like basically a daily soap opera. So that is fun. But I would say no. I think Bryce Underwood is the man in this class. I think Brian Kelly's perfectly happy with that and doesn't want to upset that apple cart. That does mean, though, George McIntyre to Tennessee is more of a likelihood.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for joining us today. If you want to tell everyone where to find you on X or any other social media platforms, please do now.
Yeah, I'm at Adam Gorney on, I still call it Twitter because I'm older, but on Twitter, and then at Adam Gorney on Instagram too. So follow me at both.
And you can check out his work on rivals.com, and it'll be on our board as well. You'll see Adam pop in here and there and post some LSU updates when he has them. So thank you again, Adam, and thank you again to all the Death Valley Insider listeners for joining us today. We will see you next time.